Hamid, child of Gaia Philodox.
And we'll begin with our introduction to the city. Las Vegas, city in a desert. For the Garou Nation, it's the stronghold of the Mojave Green Sept. Glasswalker runs since the 30s and constantly on the lookout for threats from within and without. The Black Spiral Dancer hive in Death Valley is far too close for comfort, and the human forces of commerce, industry, and exploitation lace every street. Beneath it all, the Weaver's web draws tighter, threatening to purge any spiritual resonance from the cityscape. Nearby alliances are tenuous at best. The Uktena still stalk the desert close by, but the loss of ancestral lands still sits bitterly on their tongues. Children of Gaia can be found further coastward, but the Western Eye has struggles of its own. Vegas today is a fading enclave, teetering on the knife's edge, and even a nudge either direction could have drastic results. We begin as a dark shape moves down a street, dodging the flickering street-lit areas and occasional pools of moonlight, keeping to the shadows. A chattering, scuttling sound sometimes echoes through the brighter, busier avenues, but none of the usual pedestrians seem to notice or care. After all, this is Las Vegas, and there are far more radiant vistas to draw the eye. Who cares what happens in the darkness when there are so many opportunities to reap in the light? The figure moves like prey, but with an undercurrent of surprisingly predatory grace. It skulks slowly down a narrow corridor before pausing as if testing the air for a scent. After a moment, the eyes widen and the silhouette breaks into a full panicked sprint. Moments later, the indistinct shapes of pursuers begin to manifest in the alleys and side streets, hemming in their quarry. The fugitive runs a circuitous path, desperately trying to shake the stalkers, scrambling over dumpsters and fences and fleeing down reeking gutter lanes, barely steps ahead, and then finally confronting a cul-de-sac of sorts. A dangerous, risk-laden barrier that few would dare to cross. The clatter of the hunters draws closer, and the escapee finally makes their decision. Hungry eyes watch as the figure flings itself over the fence, toppling down into whatever metaphysical void lies on the other side. And then slowly, one by one, the hunters fade back into the blackness of the Las Vegas umbra. All of you in the material world are currently located at the halfway house, with the exception of Valco. It's the evening of August 10th. There's some chit-chat to be found if you decide to lurk the grounds. The halfway house, as all of you are aware, is owned by the Mojave Green Sept. Name of one of the higher-ranking glasswalkers is on the property paperwork somewhere. And it's divided into two parts. Larger part to the northeast is actually an apartment complex rented by anybody who can manage to afford a modest home in what is tangent, at least, to the arts district here in Las Vegas. And then the smaller area, scattered few buildings, walled in, heavily gated, plenty of security cameras visible, is where the Mojave Green keeps some of the more problematic members of Garou society here in Las Vegas. Kinfolk that don't have anywhere else to land, Metis children that can't be seen out in public but still need a roof over their head, and full-fledged Garou who either haven't found a place or haven't been given enough direction to know which way they should go. And, of course, temporary housing, Valco. On your arrival to the city, you were met by a few members of the Mojave Green and then handed off to an elderly Galliard. Her name, as she introduces herself to you, is Juniper Johnson. And she is the one in charge of supervising the halfway house. She mentions that you'll be staying here at least until they have time for you to presumably deliver whatever messages you may have been given as a silent strider carrying shipments, letters, other forms of communication between Seps and Cairns is kind of your bailiwick. And as you pull in, riding passenger in her Ford Explorer that she's driving, she clicks a button, the gates slide open, and you're confronted by a small walled-in section of an apartment complex. Buildings flank on either sides, and also a couple of them are dead ahead. There's a central parking area with a few shrubs and rough landscaping. The only thing that really sticks out is a sculpture that is positioned more or less front and center, seemingly abstract in nature. Mostly looks like a couple of decent chunks of steel and or iron welded together, almost in kind of like a campfire type arrangement. And she tells you that you'll be staying in 3A, pointing off to the left. She hands you a key, says, make yourself comfortable. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm over in building D. Everybody here is in the know, so don't worry too much, but definitely give us a shout before you go wandering.
I do have one